Spring is in full swing, and while many of us are focused on cleaning out our homes or refreshing our closets, there's another important reset that often gets overlooked: your estate plan. A common misconception is that estate planning is only for the wealthy, but that may not be the case.
Joining us now to talk about a smart spring financial reset is estate planning attorney, coach, speaker, author Michelle Adams. Michelle, welcome back. Glad to have you on this Wealth Wednesday.
Yes.
So for people doing estate planning, assuming they can't afford it or maybe it doesn't apply to them, when you hear estate, you think, you've got a whole lot of something to give.
And that's not the case. So let me just debunk that myth, because people will think, oh, well, I don't have fill in your favorite
Yep.
celebrity money. It doesn't matter. Who should have an estate plan? If you are over the age of 18, you need something in place. And often people will give me that look like, really, Michelle, 18? Yes, because just because you're 18 years old, it doesn't mean that something can't happen, and God forbid that should. And I have so many situations where, thankfully, we put something together. As an example, worked with a client, she said everyone is getting an estate plan, from the youngest to the oldest, as long as they were 18. Fast forward a few years, that same grandchild was in a really serious crash. And thankfully, we had things in place that said, this is who's going to take over if this should happen. So I never discount age as a threshold for when people should start to do planning. So if you're a senior in high school, or if you're a senior based on your age, you need a plan.
That's good to know. No, I
Yes.
think we need to hear that, because I think of, older people
Yeah.
having estate planning and doing all those things.
That's right.
So talk to us about some of the risks by not putting an estate plan together, or just anything together.
Yes. So the biggest risk is you lose control over who's going to take charge and take over what's going to happen. So what do I mean? If you don't have a plan in place, I tell people that the state of Colorado has a plan for you. It's the default plan. And it could be a plan that you like, or it could be a plan that you're like, uh-oh, didn't want that to happen. So as an example, if you become ill and you don't have anyone listed, you could go through a process called conservatorship or guardianship for someone now to make plans for you. And again, the headlines are filled with stories. We think so much of celebrities, but guess what? It happens to everyday folks as well, where there could be fussing and fighting happening, and now the court needs to determine who should be in charge. Likewise with your assets, and even if you said, well, Michelle, I don't have much, what's the big deal? That little bit, you would be surprised, folks will fight over.
Wow.
And that little bit becomes a whole lot less when you get attorneys involved, now advocating for either side. So the biggest risk is loss of freedom and control over your autonomy.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. And then potential loss of assets, because now we're going through some type of court situation and the money goes by the wayside.
Okay, so it's spring. If we're thinking spring reset, maybe a good time, right, to kind of dive in. What should we be doing?
So I came up with this acronym, RTO.
I like it.
yeah.
Okay.
The R is for review. So we're going to make sure that we're reviewing all the things that we have already. So what does that mean? It means taking out the folders, looking to see beneficiary designations. Have they been updated? Accounts, are they still active, and are you engaged with them? So review all the things that you have. The T is for toss. So we're going to toss out all of those things that are no longer relevant for us. As an example, there's someone who lives in my home who keeps all of his information from the time he was a teenager of pay check stubs and all the things. I'm like, do you really need this information now? I think it's safe to say we can shred it, right? Yeah, so as part of the spring cleaning, we want to toss all of those things that are no longer relevant for us. And then the O is organize. I just came back from seeing my parents, and my mom had someone work with her to put together this beautiful closet. Everything is color coordinated, the whole thing. I know, fancy. We need to do the same thing with our stuff, so that if something happens to us, we're not tearing apart the closet looking for the documents. We have it all organized. People know exactly where to find it. So organize your passwords. Make sure that people know how to access those. Plenty of stories now, because so much of our world is digitized, and if people don't know whatever that code is to get into the phone or how to get into your computer, so much of your information can kind of go by the wayside. And we think magically people will know what it is by osmosis. No, people have really weird, passwords. There was another situation where someone recently passed away. Their person was into cybersecurity, and now they cannot get into the accounts because the person had very, complicated passwords and access. So now it's going to be a longer process. So please organize your information, and most importantly, let people know where and how to find it.
Great information, Michelle. We
Yes.
appreciate you as always. And if you want some additional tips and resources, you can follow Michelle at Family Legacy Attorney. Thank you.
Thank you.